Hello everyone. This video I wanted to showcase a build that DeMuslim performed multiple times against Lucifer, I believe. He might have also played it against one, but I'm not too sure. But he played it with a Rus versus French and a Rus mirror against Lucifron in the round 2 of Golden League, and it's quite an well. I quite like the build. It's somewhat innovative. It's quite interesting. It brings back the horse archers, which have been in meta for some time. But the opening of this build is like any other opening of a Ruse build currently at high level. You just go 5 wheels on sheep, 1 wheel to construct a hunting cabin, make a scout, rally your next worker on the hunting cabin, make a house and wood and a lumber, then rally everything on food. With 2 villagers collecting from the wood next to the lumber, and then he produced 1 scout from the hunting cabin that you have produced. Now in this game I have forgot to do it for a little bit, which is not ideal, but it's not the end of the world either. And so yeah, in Nurse Mirror of course it's actually very important to get your free scouts as fast as you can to get a better bounty than your opponent. As in most matchups you shouldn't have too much of a trouble getting to 250 bounty, but versus Rus, whoever gets to 250 bounty has a huge advantage over your opponent as they reach the second milestone of the bounty, and giving you more income from the hunting cabins, as well as a gather rate, I believe. So yeah, there's nothing too much to point out in early game. This is just a typical Rus opener. So the reason why I think the build itself works very well right now is currently due to the Mangonels nerf. The horse archers, they weren't exactly completely countered by the Mangonels, but they did do low amounts of damage to them, so mass horse archer was not much of a thing due to that. And then there's the buff of the warrior monks. I don't think it's a huge component, but it definitely helps out, having warrior monks being buffed a bit and then being used in this composition. Lastly, the boar play that has been discovered more than a few weeks ago, I think at this point, makes this build shine a lot more, given that you have this is basically a more tech focused version of the Rus build into a archer push, Rus bow build into an archer push, as this just takes it to an H3 horse archers, which are just archers on steroids essentially. As they actually don't cost too much, but they cost a little bit more than an archer, and you require the same resources. So for the newly discovered build order of Brodax into boar, it works pretty well. One thing to mention that I did not mention is you do want to get wheelbarrow as well before you start aging up. Since you're not going to be using gold for anything anyways, you might as well get wheelbarrow as soon as you can. Essentially, it will take, I don't know the exact timing if I'm honest, but as soon as you get 50 wood you should have 150 gold, and then you just start wheelbarrow. Now I'm quite lucky here. I've got 315 bounty, which is actually insanely good against the Rus. It's nice to, it's hard to get that in most matchups, but versus the Rus this should be particularly difficult. Now I see he's moving out, and he seems to be moving out towards my boar and not his own boar, which is a little bit annoying. So I pull my workers, I won't say a bit earlier. I think his worker pool was much more time than mine, but I want to contest that boar. Now since he's going to be first killing the boar, he should really put down the fortification first before killing the boar, if he's going to go for my one. But since he decides to attack it, I try to mess with his scouts as much as possible, so he has less time microing his villagers, and that does cause his villagers to die. Now I have 8 villagers versus 7. One of my scouts is low, and I do miss micro here a little bit. Like I could have done a lot more with my scouts, but I kept failing to select the correct scouts and then reselect the other two, so it was a very poor micro from me, but didn't do too much. Now, from here on, I'm not actually sure what is the best thing to do. I believe you cannot leave, because whoever leaves loses a boar, and if you have equal amount of villagers idle, then you're not exactly behind your opponent, which he only had 7 villagers idle, but that's because he lost one, and as he moves out, he also micros here, loses a scout. But yeah, whoever leaves first loses a boar, which I think is bad, because they already committed a wooden fortress here, and if they decide to go for a boar at another location, they will need to commit another wooden fortress. So I think you just want to stay there infinitely. What I would suggest is, if you have the money, I do not have the gold, but if you have the gold, you want to instantly trade for stone and get the 2 upgrades for the wooden fortress, the +2 damage upgrade and the I can't quite remember what it's called. Arrow sets is one. You get those 2 upgrades, and if you get them faster than your opponent, that means you'll take down his structure faster as well. So here I will probably start gathering my bow potentially a bit later than he will, but he lost multiple villagers just retreating. He lost multiple scouts. I think I could have I could have microed those arrow slits, those shots from the tower a little bit better to kill both scouts, so that's unfortunate. And my tower is also not in the best position, however my opponent doesn't exploit that too much, luckily for me. So from here out, I don't remember if I already gotten the double products. I believe I did, maybe. No, I haven't, okay. But I will get it now, yep. You want to make sure you have double products, and then all you really want to do is keep an eye on what he's producing. So I don't know if I already saw a knife, or did I see a stable earlier, and hence I reacted with the barracks. All you want to do is just not die to him, and go towards the stream. So he committed 140 resources of food and 100 of gold for a knight, and obviously his building cost, but that's equal to both of us. So SPman will definitely match that cost very easily. So that makes his investments worse than yours, as it will be more expensive, especially if he commits to multiple knights. Without a fully dedicated push, it's really hard to do enough damage to kill anybody or just do any damage, so you can usually get away with few units to defend yourself. Technically, you might even survive without even making a barracks and producing a single unit, but I just want to be on the safe side. I don't know how much he's going to be making. Yeah, so just the only thing to do is pay attention to the boar and react if a knight comes. It should be pretty simple, as long as it's not multiple attacking on multiple sides of the map, which he's not doing much. Here you just want to go for H3. You want to keep a few villagers on wood, just so that you're able to build houses and have enough to trade into 600 gold, just like with previous standard Rus builds. Now I see that he's adding more infrastructure, which is good for me, but I want to hit H3s really fast before he can mass an army to walk across the map with. I think it is pretty safe to go for pocket economies in this scenario, especially if you want to build an outpost with that, like the wooden fortress. I decided to change my focus on gold because I've used multiple golden tickets with the golden gate tickets to trade up for a few things, like I think I bought a bit of wood, and I also bought stone, which means that I didn't have enough tickets to just buy all the gold I wanted. Hence I went for the gold first before moving into the idea in the north corner. Ideally you would have enough golden tickets to not need to do this, so this is not optimal, but given how much he's investing, it shouldn't be too bad, and I don't see too high of a unit production from him. As he probably spotted that I'm not doing anything aggressive, he realizes that he probably does not have the time to go and punish me. And we're going to focus on getting H3 himself. Now obviously you go with Abbey of the Trinity for multiple reasons. Obviously you're going up first, or at least in this scenario you're going up first, and then means you should have an easier time securing relics. And second, you want to mix in warrior monks into this composition, and warrior monks come at half price from the Abbey of Trinity, which makes it an essential landmark to go for. I think 3 is a good number to start with. I think you should be able to support 3 if you haven't had heavy losses in early game. You should be able to support 3 archery ranges just fine, constantly producing horse archers with a constant production of warrior monks. Adding in a 4th one should be fine, like relatively soon. I think it's almost possible to do it straight away, but I think it might require to wait a minute or 2, maybe 3 before adding it, if you want full efficiency. Now, here's why there's a good reason why to get the upgrades of the arrow slits plus the I don't actually know what the upgrade is called, but the one that gives your shots plus 2 damage, is because if your opponent decides to go for a snipe without a ram, well, they're not gonna have a good time. So yeah, I just want to start picking up relics around the map as soon as possible. This is still really good for me as I'm H3 and my opponent is not, and he's just throwing away his units now, which is basically his only advantage he has over me. You want to add in a few scouts from your hunting cabins, which is which also helps with your pocket economies. If you have multiple pocket economies, like the boar here, the deer in the top corner, and so on, you should have at least 3 structures to produce scouts from, which your first hunting cabin, the boar, and another pocket economy. And in that case, you should be able to spend all of your money with that pocket, yeah, that should be enough to produce all the scouts you need to spend all your money. Yeah, from here it's pretty simple. You just spam horse archers. Since he's in low numbers and still in H3 after he lost a lot of units, going for harass is a pretty good idea, and especially given that he has multiple pocket economies. His gold is quite far out from his TC, but I think that's his only gold, and he also has a deer camp to the left of his base, so those should be prime raids. Now it does actually have a bigger archer mass right now than my horse archer mass, I believe, but archers cannot do too much by themselves. They can idle you just for a bit, but that's about it. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the archers don't see my warrior monks or don't intercept the relics, and then I'm gonna continue harassing his eco. Now I'm floating quite like a little bit of food, since I decided to throw in another archery range. I haven't quite produced the scouts that I wanted to, so you might want to produce scouts a bit earlier than I did in this game. I was focusing on a bit too much on run base and collecting relics that I forgot to add in scouts. My opponent's going for stone, which might suggest he's gonna go for a second TC, which is also a really good idea with Roost, especially when you have hit H3, build a few horse archers. Going for a second TC is a very good idea, because your villager count as Roost is abysmally low compared to most other civs. So I do not go for second TC here, but overall I think it's a great idea to go for second TC. All you need is an excess amount of wood, and then just trade up to stone. With the 2 trade ups from the golden gates are going to give you enough to get a second TC. Now my horse archers were a bit mismicroed here, but it's not too big a deal, as my opponent only now reached H3, and now I finally start adding in some scouts. Scouts are somewhat integral to the composition. I want to add a few more hunting cabins, but I don't really require these. It's not like they're bad per se. I have quite an excess amount of wood, and I did not think of going for second TC at the time, so it's not horrible to add more hunting cabins, as I still will generate gold, assuming you add them in appropriate locations. But it was not really necessary for the scout production, as I already had 3, or even 4 actually. So this raid already got more relics than he did. So for him going for an Abbey of Trinity, which he did go for, was a mistake. It would have been better for him to go for the High Trade House, due to the fact that he would only manage to get 2 relics at best, and I think he's only going to get 1. So it's definitely a mistake from his side at this point in the game. So yeah, if you just keep him in his base while you start massing up, picking off a few units here and there, it's gonna allow you to get a good mass going for yourself while delaying his mass, as you're gonna have warrior monks in the mix. So as long as you take damage but don't die with your horse archers, they will be able to regain HP by having the warrior monk kill them. Okay, it's not very much of a complex build from here. All you do is just keep adding in scouts, keep adding in warrior monks, and keep adding in horse archers, with horse archers being the main unit in the composition. You might want to switch to mining some stone at this point to get keeps up in important locations. You might want to capture the sites, which I'm not doing, but it might be a pretty good idea to capture those. From here, like another good thing about horse archers is that they should have map control over your opponent, especially if you're in a leading position, due to their mobility, which allows you to make him stay in his own base, making him go for farms early, and make yourself delay your farms instead, which is very helpful. And you can see, as I've been trickling down his eco and military, he does not have too much units, while my mass has gotten pretty significant. If you want to be a bit fancy, you can bring a relic with you to the fights to try to push your warrior monk when you wololo. And you just position in the middle of your army, and then move your army in the direction that you want to move your monk. But yeah, at this point the game is pretty much over. My opponent has been behind the entire game, and now he's gonna be losing critical eco and does not have the military to contest me. And that's more or less the build that DeMuslim has pulled off in the Golden League. I think it's a very good build in the current patch, or the very least in the current meta. Horse archers are really strong with this very cheap meat shield in front of them, and you can master them pretty easily. So I would recommend trying out this build, and that's gonna be it. Thank you for watching.